Okay, then let's start. Uh, I know Dr. Zuzer for a long time, and he is a very prominent social science scholar in Hong Kong. And also, I don't know whether you know it or not, he runs a sports media covering Hong Kong football. So I think this dual background makes him more aware of this fake news issue in the society. And I know that you had one lesson exactly about this topic, so I'm gonna use my sharing as a complementary one to that lesson. So first, I think I have to briefly introduce myself. Uh, I worked as a reporter and editor in this news industry for over 10 years, and I worked with China Daily, the national English newspaper, for 8 years, covering politics and current affairs, mostly in Hong Kong, but also in the Asia Pacific region. And now I just left and joined a financial information services company. We just cover business, corporates, and industry policies for those uh, institutional investors. In the meantime, I also write columns for some local media. So this following stuff this following stuff is based on my day-to-day experience in the newsroom operation. So I hope that will shed a light on your understanding about this fake news issue. Uh, how can we, right. So first of all, I would like to confine my topic to a more recent time frame, that is the social media era. But of course, I will also talk about some of the fake news that even fooled the professional media. Uh, in the pre-internet era, we mostly receive our news from trusted media source whose journalists are required to follow a very strict code of conduct. They do interviews, they go to the site, they check facts, and also they had a whole editorial procedure and policy to avoid wrong information. And also, for those who can make their voice heard in traditional media, they must be someone. They can be an expert, they can be a scholar, or they are people that represent a certain group of people. So their credibility of the information are guaranteed. And most people receive from traditional media at the time. So fake news is kind of smaller phenomenon during that time. It's not a life and death issue for the society. But now we're living in the world that is where social media is so dominant. So the internet actually enabled a much flatter world. Everyone can be a reporter. Everyone can make their voice heard. But but uh, they make their voice heard. They produce contents with little regulation and editorial standards. So that's fake news became a social issue. And so on social media, news and information has four typical characteristics. First, they have lower threshold and standard and quality. So like I said, everyone can make their voice heard on social media. But on the flip side, many are not qualified actually to make their voice heard. That one person can be someone who is ignorant and who maybe someone who know little about what's happening, or someone who actually had a bad intent. So you expect bad news reporting from those entities, and they don't have an editorial policy to rule out fake news. So that's the first thing. And secondly, the nature of social media actually prioritize contents based on engagement metrics rather than quality. So social media, we know, is all about like and shares. So and the media and the business model is purely based on engagement. So content producers will of course compile stories that can stir people's emotions, like whether it is joy or fear or hate or surprise, whatever. So people with emotions will be more likely to share and react on those contents. So always quality is number two on social media. So it is not important about how accurate or how well researched it is. So that's the second problem. And thirdly, close relationships. A close relationship creates blind trust. Before, we may receive news from trusted media, and the media will also invite people that is trustworthy, that is knowledgeable to talk. For example, very likely in the past, I would like we will read a commentary piece maybe from Dr. Tobias Souza, right? On let's say South China Morning Post. And we read it objectively about his views. And we are sure that he is a trusted source because he is an expert in certain fields. I believe so, right? So he is an expert in certain field, and he knows he has studied some of the social issues. But under the social media model, you often receive a piece of information, maybe from your best friend, maybe from your parents, or from your closest classmate just sitting next to you. You trust the person, of course, 100%, right? But in many cases, he will also share wrong information, misinformation, fake news to you. But at the time, many people tend to believe it because you trust the person. That's human instincts. And because that is a intimacy between the content receiver and the content provider. So that poses a very big threat for fake news to spread. And fourth, social media actually links people with the same views, because we often say that social media creates bubbles, creates tribes, and for many times people will join online groups with people only with the same views, right? For example, one maybe, let's say, an anti-US guy, and he may just join some groups that always pushing those anti-US wrong misinformation, and he will never get an objective view about the United States if he stayed in this bubble. So that's also how fake news is spread. Okay, I don't know whether you can see it clearly. Oh, right, this is big enough. So this is a study compiled by investment data platform Visual Capitalist. It studied the fake news issue in the United States. And for top news, only 10% of people receive them from social media. But fake news gets 4 times more of their traffic on social media than established news sources. So you can see 42% of fake news just was circulating on the social media platforms. Yeah, that's the first thing. And secondly, there's another side of the story. The trust in mass media is declining during the years. You can see that in 1998, 53% of American people actually trusted public media. But now the number declined to around 30%. So there's a complicated reason behind it. Maybe firstly, before that, the politics are not that polarized, are not that biased. So people, let me say, who watch CNN will also watch Fox News for information. But now, I believe that the majority of people who watch CNN would not watch Fox News again. So this is how political bias made people made the choice. And secondly, the younger generation had a really different habit of getting their news. So that's also part of why the trust in mass media just declined. So today I want to talk about this topic in 4 categories. First, what are the typical types of fake news? And secondly, why do they happen? And what are the social impact and how to identify and fight fake news? Okay, first, the first type of fake news that I want to mention is the very low level of fake news, that the facts are fake. It's easier to spot. Like here, I think many of you may have heard about a series of stories about this. So in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, many people in the world believe that 5G spreads COVID. And you can see in this CNBC report that in the UK, many telecommunication towers were burnt or vandalized because people think that those towers actually spread the virus. But I can say like 100% of us in this classroom won't believe it, right? So we can easily tell this is fake because we are educated and we have the knowledge, but still in the society, many don't. In this report, across Britain, more than 30 acts of arson and vandalism happened because of this reason. So you can see how the fake news spread and how big a social impact is that. And is that the UK people that is less educated? No. According to a United Nations report, in Montenegro, the Balkan country, 31% of people believe that 5G actually spread the coronavirus. So imagine what will happen in this kind of a public opinion situation. So the government will have to make more efforts to make people believe that pandemic control measures actually work. And that will cost a lot of social resources, and people will be more allergic or more tend to panicking more, like to any pandemic related news and overreact to it. So yeah, this is already a very serious fake news, a very serious impact on the society by fake news. But still, this is the lowest level of fake news. So there are more deceptive and more in disguise types. Let's see the second point. There are stories that contain elements of truth, but are broadly inaccurate. What does it mean? So sometimes fake news is more in disguise, more deceptive. If, let's say, if all the facts are fake, so it's easier for people to spot. But in this model of fake news, it is harder to check. It needs more skill to identify. Like here, this is a study by a very famous US medical institute based in Massachusetts. It said, according to the report, the Omicron variant is as deadly as the previous waves. So it said, it obviously said that Omicron is as strong as Delta, Alpha. But is that true? I think many of you seeing this headline will have this question: is that true? And also a lot of big news media reported this report at the time in May, like Reuters, Fortune, The Independent. They are all serious very credible media. But this seems very credible, right? This is a top medical institution, and they have a big enough sample case. Like here, it studied over 130,000 patients. And also, it is published on professional medical academic platform. So that's also why a lot of big media chose to report it. But at the time, my team was going to cover it. So we got we got the original text, original report, to study it line by line to see whether this is a real credible information. But the devil is in the detail, always. You can see in this line, here I mark it with the red lines. The medical institution just counted cases with positive PCR test. And it's said that there's certain limitation that it undercounts the number of real infections, since it does not include people who take repeat test or people who chose not to get tested and people who visited a facility outside its hospital system. But there's a fact, there's a common sense, there's a fact that during the end of 2021, that the US has stopped mass testing for almost nationwide. And it reopened the society at the time. So let me say the majority of people are not taking PCR test anymore. So many people chose to, if they think they have a milder symptom, they just take a repeat test, or maybe chose not to test. So the total number of infections could be largely underestimated, undercounted in this study. So that is too big. The number is too big to ignore. So so maybe now the thing is like before, you compare 100 infected person, maybe you have one death, but now you still record like 100, but maybe there are 1,000 out there. You are not counting it. So those who walk into the hospital and take the PCR test are those who have stronger symptoms. So yeah, so here, I think we can only say that there may be similar number of people died during the waves, but you can never say the Omicron is as deadly as the previous variants. And I think later public health data from all over the world has shown that the Omicron is a much weakened virus. So that piece of information was actually a fake news. And some big media, some very credible media also chose to report it. So that's how some misinformation has fooled those trusted media. And thirdly, there are content producers clip facts to make information look credible. This is also a higher level of misinformation. It's harder to identify. Like here, this is a commentary piece by the People's Daily before the CPC's 20th Congress, and it published this opinion piece just to elaborate why the country is continuing its zero COVID policy. So yeah, despite the rest of the world has already reopened. So it quoted the WHO saying that because this winter we will see a double whammy, a flu, COVID double whammy. So we are going to make stricter pandemic control measures to protect people's health. So it looks like that the WHO actually supported China's zero COVID control measures. And seems like China has the support of the top authority, top medical authority of the world. But was that true? Yeah. So at the time, my team also has to cover this part of this news item. So we also went back to the original source to read about what the WHO has really said. Here in a daily briefing, the WHO Director General, Mr. I never know how to pronounce his name. So he said that yes, there's a flu and COVID double whammy. That is true. But his solution was to let people get vaccines. It's not like stricter control measures or mass testing or anything. So, and also we know very clear about the WHO's take on China's zero COVID policy. In May, the WHO Director General said that model is simply not sustainable. So that was always the WHO's take on this policy. So I think People's Daily also knows this. But why it still cite WHO with that piece of information in that opinion piece is just to tell the people, just to make a point that our zero COVID policy is actually very good. It's actually based on the current system, current situation, but actually this is not a true story. So the People's Daily just clip facts to justify its policy. And fourth, there are Photoshop news. I think, yeah, this is another very common type of fake news. It's kind of deceptive, but sometimes it's very easy to spot. Photos play a very key role in making fake news stories by boosting people's emotions, because an emotional response make it far more likely for someone to click, share, and like it. Yeah, like in this picture, I think this is too long. Can you see it? This photo went viral after an earthquake happened in Sichuan province, and it said that 27 pandas escaped the earthquake and climbed on one tree. So when they share about news, they say, "Oh, this is so cute. This is so auspicious. Let's see. This is the pandas are so clever." But I think on the second thought, we will see that this is not true, simply not true, right? How can a tree that is so thin, so young can hold this many fat boys, right? So, but still this photo went viral on social media and forced the city's police force to expel this rumor. So yeah, this is the power of photos. It provokes your emotion. I think many sharing the photo just think this is so lovely and adorable, and everyone loves panda, right? So yeah, that's how they boost traffic and boost like and shares on social media platforms. So yeah, sometimes human beings are like this so naive to believe in this kind of a very low level of fake news, but still, it sometimes will generate some social impact. Like also in this very funny photo, I think many of you may seen this before. May have seen this before. Like this pilot is taking a selfie in the air, but actually he was on the ground. But that was photoshopped. That was photoshopped by a very skillful, I think, I think a content producer, just to get likes, get shares. And also here, fake news are always circulating, always circulated during elections. Like here, this is Mitt Romney, the former presidential candidate for the Republican Party in the US. Once he had a campaign that, yeah, using these boys and girls to support his campaign, right? But yeah, on the internet, the photo that have gone viral is the first one at the top. It just showed money, right? Why is that? Because Mitt Romney is a super rich, and he is actually the co-founder of Bain Capital. So his opponents tries to defame him for, yeah, saying that he is too off the ground. He is not one of the people, right? So someone just photoshopped the letters to just defame him, but actually the letters just showed his name, right? So that was close, but still, this is very deceptive on the internet, and it created a wave that people turn to vote against this man. So people try to do something to ruin his campaign, and Photoshop is one of the skills. Okay, let's come to the next, the fifth type, satire, which is a very common news type, fake news type, mainly in the West. I think in Chinese it's more more proper translation would be like 高级黑 or 讽刺. So there are some particularly famous satire news websites like The Onion and the Daily Mash. So they basically publish stories on irony and humor. So let's see here. So again, the People's Daily, I don't know why, but yeah. So it used the Onion story, saying that this man was actually the sexiest man alive for 2012. So you all know this man, right? So let's see the original piece. With his devastatingly handsome round face and boyish charm and his strong, sturdy frame, this man is every woman's dream come true. So after reading this, you know that this is fake, this is satire. But People's Daily just used it as a real news. So sometimes there is a risk to misunderstand this kind of a news items. And let's see another example. This is the new Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak. The Daily Mash said he introduced stupidity tax to people, and it will be levied on anyone who has displayed poor intelligence over the past 25 years. And if you are an 18-year-old buying a motorbike to impress a girl, the tax will be like 77%. So this is kind of you know this is a joke, but still there are people sharing this and believe that could be that could be true, and that will have some social impact. And let's come to the sixth type of fake news: wrong dateline. Sometimes people use old news to express their attitude towards current affairs. Like here, in this People's Daily, again, People's Daily, but this time is not their fault. This is not their fault. This is a photo commentary, actually, during the 2019 Hong Kong unrest. And yeah, of course, People's Daily want to criticize the radical protesters during the unrest. But actually, this photo went viral weeks ago. Why? Because China was actually in the deep mud of lockdowns and strict COVID pandemic control measures. So people use this to express their anger against those measures. You understand the thing, right? So, but commenting directly against the measures, the control measures, may not be tolerated on the internet. So they use this kind of this way to express their anger. And some people received it. They did not check the dateline. They may just think, oh, the People's Daily is asking us to take off our mask. So is it a sign? Is it a signal that we are going to return to normal life? So this is also something that is circulating on the internet and create some turbulence in public opinion. So, this is how content producers even use old news to express their attitude towards current affairs. Okay, so there are two types of reasons for why do those fake news happen. First, they are deliberately inaccurate stories. People who publish them know they are false, but still publish them anyway. The reason is to manipulate public opinion or to drive internet traffic. For example, in the previous examples I showed to you, that the People's Daily WHO commentary, right? It just used WHO's opinion. It just clipped the WHO's opinion to make a point, to actually manipulate public opinion. And there are also more examples. Among those I showed previously, I don't know which one do you find falls into this category, like deliberately inaccurate stories? Anyone remember any of the examples I've showed in the previous part? Okay, or maybe you can keep it to the end, and I will show more examples about this. And yeah, one example is that panda picture. That is a deliberately inaccurate story. That is a deliberately inaccurate story just to drive internet traffic, just to get shares and likes, right? And there is also non-deliberate fake news. The publisher hasn't checked all the facts or has exaggerated certain aspects to make a particular point. Part of the reason is maybe poor quality journalism, lack of common sense, and biased perception. So one example is the Omicron deadliness report. So that is a part of the poor quality journalism, I think. If they cross-check other reports, if they read into the original text of the report, those media may not choose to report that news. Because I also noticed that some other world-renowned media did not report that news, because I think mainly because they have checked most facts and then thought that the finding was not that solid and chose not to report. So this is one example. And second, here I want to insert one of the very local example of how non-deliberate fake news happen. Here on the left, I don't want to name the media, but it's a very famous media here in Hong Kong. During the high-speed rail launch in 2018, the MTR held a media tour for the media to have a first experience about the service. So after the tour, we had a wave of news reports about the high-speed rail, and as it has been the focus at the time for Hong Kong, but many fake news and misinformation just appeared in those reports. Like here, as you can read, that media reported that only first class seats has electricity sockets, and economy class does not have. So if you sit on an economy class seat, you will have to bring your portable battery to recharge your devices. But actually, I was shocked when reading this news. I don't know, even on a plane, they will not differentiate different basic services according to the class, right? So why they don't have a electricity socket for the economy class? So I went to check other reports. So on the right, on the top right, this is another famous Hong Kong media. It reported that both first and economy class has sockets. So there's a problem. So who's right and who is correct, right? At the time, actually, I was in charge of the high-speed rail launch report coverage with China Daily, and I actually sent my colleague to the front line, and he told me that all the seats, both first class and economy class, has the socket. And this is the photo he took. Yeah, this is a economy class seat. And he also told me that how that reporter failed this report. How did she reported a fake news? I mean the one on the left. So that's because the chair was a spinnable chair. And on our way back, that reporter just turned the chair 180 to avoid like facing backward when the train just going forward. And that's when he looked down to see whether there's a electricity socket, but he found no. But actually that's on his backside. That's on her backside. So, but she just jumped to the conclusion that the economy class does not have electricity sockets. So this is how simple a fake news can happen. And this is for a very professional, established media in Hong Kong. And also, there's another news piece down there on the left. So another media reported that the Wi-Fi cannot be connected. The reporter has been trying to connect to the Wi-Fi multiple times, but all failed. So this also creates an impression for the readers that, yeah, even on a high-speed rail, there's no Wi-Fi. Why shall I go anywhere, buy it, right? So, but actually, the thing is, the MTR PR has already made an announcement before this tour that the Wi-Fi will not be switched on during the tour. Yeah, so that's actually the truth. So, and that's why other media did not report on this part. So I think I was kind of disappointed because if a reporter is professional, he should always double check his findings with relevant parties. So he should just go to the MTR PR and just double check. But sadly, those reporters did not. And it left a social impact on the in Hong Kong because all the people are focusing on this launch. And when they saw this, they will think, oh, this high-speed rail is so badly designed and I will not take it, right? So that's how fake news creates social impact. And there are bigger social impacts, like the US presidential elections and the Trumpism, rise of Trumpism during the years. Donald Trump's presidency actually is based largely on fake news, as you all know. And you can see that man on the right, Steve Bannon, was his campaign manager during his presidential election in the 2016. And they Bannon set up a company called Cambridge Analytica just to target voters with personalized political advertisements with some personal data acquired from Facebook and other channels. And the information they are pushing mostly are many are misinformation and disinformation, like like news smearing against then his opponent Hillary Clinton about her health, about her misconduct, about her mental issue, and also her opinions. And also they target the Democratic Party, and this tactic was very effective, and it actually won this election for them. So we all know what happened during the 4 years after Trump assumed office. 4 years of turbulence for both US and the world. Not only radical policies are imposed in the US, but also led the United States out of many international cooperations. And that creates a really big power vacuum in many international cooperation institutions. And also fake news led radical politicians like Donald Trump in the game before they are out. And it also created a more polarized society, like the Black Lives Matter campaign and also the Asian hates, right? And it ended up like this, like one of the biggest scandal of US politics, the January 6th Capitol storming. So this is also started by Trump. You can see on the right, there are a list of Trump's most liked tweets, and some of them contains wrong and fake information. Like, I will be making a statement tonight, a big win. So this is even before, the result was declared, but he just used that piece of information to incite, to encourage those radicals to do something for them, to do something for him. So yeah, it ended up like this chaos. And also another major geopolitical changes in the world was Brexit, and it was also based mainly on fake news, because for people to understand such a complicated issue, it is hard, right? So people tend to believe those very simple and clear-cut information. So yeah, you can see here this Twitter post. It is done by Nigel Farage, the UK Independence Party leader then at the time. And I don't know whether you can see clearly of the text there. He published a Twitter post saying that this woman actually, this pro-refugee woman actually said that my legs are open for refugees. And this created a lot of hate and defamed a lot of groups, pro-refugee groups during that debate. But actually, the correct information is here. The photo said that my door is open for refugees. It is photoshopped, but Nigel Farage, a professional politician, used this wrong photo to make a point, to divert the public opinion. And that was only a miniature of how fake news was impacting this process. And also this very famous bus advertisement, I think many of you may have seen it. We send the EU like 350 million pounds a week. So let's get the money back and fund the NHS, the national hospital chain. But actually, this is really a very fake misinformation. And even UK's statistics chief, I think the chief of National Statistics Bureau or any department said that Boris Johnson misused the figure. Why? Because actually this is a very complicated math. Like I just say one thing, that the EU, after receiving this membership fee, will return it to the UK to subsidize many developing sectors like the agriculture sector, like the renewable energy sector. And if you quit the EU, UK has to fund those sectors by themselves. So they're gonna pay more money, not just simply get back the membership fee and you can invest into the NHS. And also joining the EU actually expands UK's market. In a unified market, UK's economy can grow in a more favorable way. But after the Brexit, UK's economy is negatively affected. So maybe the government may have less to invest into the national hospital chain. So you can see in the following years, UK's competitiveness and openness are hurt, and cost of living was up, and less investments from outside, and also additional costs for business doing import and export. So those are true social impact for the UK after a fake news driven campaign. And also the Hong Kong social unrest. It was also flamed by rounds of fake news. I think one of the most famous was the mysterious death in the Prince Edward Station, but after which the event was later proved to be untrue by many media organizations, many academic organizations, and also foreign media like Bloomberg, they also covered it. But also misinformation has created a very big impact in the society. And for China, so in the history, the Great Leap Forward campaign actually was also built on fake news. It some local government just forged the fake news about how their rice paddy can produce like 180,000 kilo per Chinese mu. But actually now with technological advancements, we can only produce like under 1,000 kilo per Chinese mu now. So, but that kind of fake news actually actually drove the nation to a craziness and end up with like tens of thousands starved to die. Yeah, that's also how fake news affected China. And now there's a COVID scare in China. They're also based on those kind of news items, like someone even think that this is a biological warfare instead of just a virus. And also there are exaggerations about the 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 sequelae of the COVID virus. So that created a very big scare now in China. So if the mainland China is going to reopen its border and society, there is some kind of risk that people will go panicking. So under the situation, I think the government must intervene. And now the EU has stepped a little further. It had a Digital Service Act. With the regulation, multimedia platforms will be held accountable for their role in the spread of mis and disinformation. The law will strengthen incentives for platforms to tackle illegal and harmful contents. So this is the first step, and I think the law was just enacted a year ago. So we can closely follow what will happen afterward, and also how to balance the role of governments, platforms, and yeah, how to draw the line about privacy, freedom of speech, and also how to tackle fake news. And technology has also to be used. So governments can simply hire third-party anti-rumor, can simply set up a third-party anti-rumor mechanism to label any fake news on big social media and media platforms. And yeah, there could be legislation, and the government can appoint designated media organizations and academic institutions as partners to check, verify, and identify fake news, and then just directly label them on the link on the on all the major social media platforms. Like when you receive a post on Facebook, if it is a fake news, the government can order those institutions to check and have a banner on that link and to show what is truth and what is not. So that may help end the spread of fake news. And also here, this is a quote from Apple CEO Tim Cook. He said, all of the technology companies also need to create some tools to help diminish the volume of fake news. Try to squeeze this without stepping on freedoms of speech and freedom of the press. But I still have concerns. I am very happy to see those big giants are helping with this matter. But I still have concerns because actually those tech companies, they have a share in this fake news model, because fake news can stimulate like and shares. It can creates more reaction, more interaction on their platform. So they actually profit from that. So for them to cut this part of profit, it's kind of hard. So still, I think the government must have, the legislature must have a balanced, unbiased, objective system to rule out fake news on social media and also media platforms. Okay, so let's come to the last part. So before those happens, before government intervention or before the tech giants correct their mistakes, what do we do? How to identify and fight fake news? I think now I list like 7 tips for you. And first, check the dateline. This is the very easy and very basic way to check, to read the news. Like in this example, this is a news about that Shenzhen's officials were dismissed after it could not control the coronavirus pandemic. But actually, this is from like March this year, but it actually went viral like weeks ago. Why? Because weeks ago there was another wave of pandemic in Shenzhen, and people are panicking. So some people just used this kind of emotions and redistributed this old news to show how serious is this wave of a pandemic. But actually, that was not that serious. Yeah, I think within a week it's down, but actually there are people who use the wrong dateline as a way to get like and shares. So first, remember to check the dateline when you read any news. And secondly, check the reputation of the media before you believe it. Like here, there's a news report about UK government published the data confirming that fully vaccinated people are now up to 3 times more likely to die of COVID than those unvaccinated. You won't believe that, right? But it said that UK government published this data. This is based on data. So people will think, oh, this could be credible. This could be a solid information. So because at the time the vaccine was a new thing, so people may think, oh, maybe the vaccine was harmful for people's health. But actually, when you see this media, they expose, you will think, oh, I never saw that name, right? This is a new name to me. So should check the reputation of the media. So I went to the Wikipedia. You can see here, this is a British conspiracist website created only in 2020. And it is known for publishing anti-vaccine misinformation. So later you will know. So once you see anything about vaccination and those kind of information, if it is they expose, don't believe it, right? So this media is biased and has some hidden agenda behind it. And thirdly, please remember to check other media. So is there other media that has same reports? Because professional global news agencies have their editorial guidelines, and they have extensive resources for fact checking, for interviews, and for data analysis. So if they are also reporting it, that's a good sign. But this cannot rule out all the fake news, like the previous example I showed to you, like Reuters, The Independent, those kind of big media tend to believe in some not solid reports. So yeah, but still, when you do this, I think maybe 80 or 90% of fake news you can rule out them, right? So let's come to the fourth point. Go to the primary source and check, are they credible? Like in the Omicron as deadly as other variants story. Only when you check the original source and read that line, you will know that that report was not credible. So sometimes if you have to check a piece of fake news, just go there and check. Go to the original source and check. And fifth, check the facts. Sometimes you may get the original source, but still you have to check in details about the facts. Like in the WHO People's Daily case, the story was based on things that really happened, for sure. But we can simply check whether the facts was 100% faithful or whether it was distorted. So sometimes when you check, you will find that some fake news just emerged. And six, yeah, keep calm and stay critical. Especially, yeah, especially do not be provoked by any emotions. Like in the Brexit promotion case, if you are a voter in the UK, I think you will be very vulnerable to those kind of fake news. Those fake news are raining like cats and dogs. So you have to keep calm and stay critical to check whether this piece of news are real or not, and make a sober and sound decision. And seventh, this is the last tip I want to give you. So use your common sense to reason. And sometimes, especially on the social media, we receive some piece of information that we cannot find the original source. So we may have to use our common sense to reason. Like in this Ni Kuang case, this is a very typical and very, I think, very perfect example of how we use our common sense. So, you know, Ni Kuang was a literature giant in Hong Kong, and he died earlier this year. He was a controversial figure because of obviously his anti-communist stance. That started during his early age, during which he escaped from the communist regime, from being framed by with a harsh crime. And he said, back in a dark winter night, back in the dark winter night in the northeastern part of China, he and his team was on a mission to deliver some supplies, but they were trapped in the middle of nowhere and in need of heating. So they dismantled a wood bridge and turned it into firewood. And later he was sentenced to like a long prison term with conviction of destroying public property or something. So that's why he fled to Hong Kong. So that's his version of the story. But during his death, a new version started to circulate on China's social media that Ni Kuang was actually a murderer, like this one shown on the left. He actually, the broken bridge actually killed a tractor driver. How? The driver was actually, it is said, actually driving past that broken bridge and dropped down to the river and drowned to death. This is a very serious accusation. I checked throughout the media and cannot find any history record or any reports about this story. So in this case, I cannot find the original source. So this comes down to the highest level of how you distinguish fake news. So use your common sense. First, let's analyze this situation. The thing happened in the winter in 1955. So let's look at the location. Niquan at the time was here in the place named Baoanzhao, which is a very small town, only have several agricultural farms there. And during the winter, it's like minus 30 or 40 degrees. So common sense told us that all the agricultural work just stopped, right? During the winter break. But who would drive a tractor in that deep snow during that night, right? This is the first question. And secondly, with the river all frozen, is it really possible that a tractor driver would die when he was crossing the bridge, even if the bridge was broken and he dropped down to the ice? No, right? Maybe I don't know, but we should ask ourselves this question. And how big could the wood bridge be if that can be dismantled by several men's hand? And how deep could the river be, right? These are the questions we should ask ourselves. And the third thing, what does a tractor mean to China at the time? So we know at the time, China was very backwards technologically. So I checked data that on the left, that China only had its first domestically made tractor in 1957. So 2 years after Niquan fled, right? So all the equipment was relied on exports. So I think mainly from Soviet Union. So, and I further checked government data that in 1955, all over China, we only have 2,400 tractors. So the question is, could a small farm in Baoanzhao have one tractor at a time? So it's too hard to check, but I changed my strategy to try to make a comparison. So I try to check how many Rolls-Royce in China now, because it is Rolls-Royce only produce luxury cars, so it's very rarely seen in China, especially in small towns. So up to 2020, the Chinese mainland has like 8,000 Rolls-Royce. And yeah, it's rarely seen. So you know how rarely seen is a Rolls-Royce on the street of China, and you will know how rarely seen would a tractor be in China, right? So with those previous 3 findings, although we do not have original information about this, although we are not 100% sure about whether this is fake news, but I think we can make a very sober judgment that I think 80 or 90% possible that this is not true, right? So that's how we make that decision. For a newsroom, we just choose not to report it. I think for individuals, we choose not to share it. Yeah. That's how, yeah, that's my tips for you. When you see some information that is in doubt. So yeah, we just use the 7 tips to rule out those fake news. Okay, to summarize we discussed about different types of fake news and why they happened and what are the social impacts and how to identify fake news. Yeah, so that is all my sharing and yeah, thanks for your time and hope you are immune to fake news from today on. And yeah, if you have any further questions, you can ask right away. And also, if you have further questions later, you can send me emails. And yeah, last but not least, I know this is approaching the end of the semester. So hope you get a good result in the final exam. But I think that is in the hand of this man, right? But still, my best wishes. And also, yeah, let's enjoy the World Cup, right? Even it is in the winter time. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the very comprehensive and also very detailed presentation. And there are a few questions that I think are very meaningful and further discussed. And also, I encourage all of you to ask questions. Before we get to like one comment, especially like you shared the example right about the Omicron case.
Right.
And you showed the website of the research platform. The one that showed the research article. There's what you could witness there is also something to pay attention to specifically when research